We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, among these life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. 250 years ago, 56 men signed a document that changed the world. They didn't just declare independence from a king, they declared that power belongs to the people, that governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed, and that when any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it. That wasn't just philosophy, it was a blueprint for civic duty. The founders understood something we sometimes forget. Transparency is not a gift from those in power. It is a demand from those who grant it. Every public record, every disclosed document, every data set released under the law exists because citizens fought for the right to see it. This series, Paper Trail, is built on that principle. We don't have subpoena power, we don't have badges. We have public records, open source tools, and the belief that when the data exists, citizens have the duty to read it, to verify it, and to follow it wherever it leads. That is the promise of the Declaration. Not that the world will be just, but that the people have the right and the responsibility to make it so. What you are about to see is the result of that civic duty in action. 2,894 FedEx shipments, parsed from Department of Justice released invoices, every finding reproducible, every error disclosed. Because that is what the founders asked of us, not blind trust, but open eyes. Before we begin, here's what this episode covers. 2,894 FedEx shipments, parsed from 16,600 invoice pages released by the Department of Justice. 2 billing accounts, one personal, one corporate. The personal account handled 2,600 shipments. The corporate account, NYSG LLC, handled 199. The timeline runs from February 2000 to September 2005. Then it stops, 4 months before arrest. 5 properties connected by shipping routes. Named associates who appear as senders, recipients, and signers: Maxwell, Cessation, Morrison, Alessi, Indyke, Klein. A pseudonym investigation. Someone at Zorro Ranch sent packages to Jeanne Jame Doe, an alias for Jean Brennan. The alias was used only from the New Mexico property. Weight anomalies up to 305 pounds. An 84% OCR error on charge data. $422,000 of overstatement corrected. 9 entities verified across independent evidence domains. 2,894 packages. 5 years. 1 question. Why did it stop? Episode 6. The Epstein Packages. 2,894. That's the number of FedEx shipments we extracted from DOJ Dataset 10. Spanning February 2000 to September 2005, 5.5 years of shipping invoices billed to 2 accounts. One in the name of Jeffrey E. Epstein, one in the name of NYSG LLC. Nearly 3,000 packages sent and received across 5 properties, 16 countries, and dozens of named individuals. This episode is about what those shipping records reveal. Before we dig into the data, let's understand what a FedEx invoice actually records. Each shipment generates a structured record: who sent it, who received it, when it was picked up and delivered, how much it weighed, what service was used, what it cost, and, critically, who signed for it at the other end. That last field matters. A signature on a FedEx delivery is physical presence evidence. It tells you someone was at a specific address on a specific date. The invoice also records the billing account, who pays, and the payer designation. Most shipments are billed to the sender, but some are billed to a third party. Someone else authorized the charge. We'll come back to that. The raw material. DOJ Dataset 10 contains approximately 16,600 FedEx invoice pages, all EFTA prefixed documents released through the Epstein Library portal. Script 11 is our parser. It reads each invoice page, extracts sender, recipient, tracking ID, weight, charges, dates, and signatures through OCR, and writes structured rows to the database. 2894 shipments recovered. Script 12 then runs the analysis: temporal patterns, geographic spread, weight distribution, network mapping, producing 27 CSV exports that form the basis of everything you'll see in this episode. Source check. Everything in this episode comes from a single source type, FedEx shipping invoices. That's both a strength and a limitation. The strength is structure. Invoices have consistent fields: sender, recipient, dates, weight, charges. They're designed to be machine readable. The limitations are real. OCR on degraded scans introduced errors. 63% of shipments have no parsable weight. 32% have no date. And the original charge data was inflated by $422,000 due to OCR decimal drop errors. We corrected 72 records to reach a true total of approximately $75,584. Most importantly, invoices tell you who sent what to whom and how much it weighed. They do not tell you what was inside. Shipping a package is not evidence of wrongdoing. We will not pretend otherwise. Two accounts. The personal account, 1144-2081-6, in the name of Jeffrey E. Epstein, 2630 shipments, roughly $68,500 in charges. The corporate account, 2292-07504, in the name of NYSG LLC, 199 shipments, roughly $6,900. Both accounts are registered to the same address, 457 Madison Avenue, New York. 65 additional shipments couldn't be attributed to either account, likely OCR parse failures on the account number field. Two accounts, one address, 91% personal, 7% corporate. That split, and what happens to each account at the end, becomes important later. NYSG LLC, a New York limited liability company, DOSID 2288572, registered to 457 Madison Avenue, the same address as Epstein's personal account. If you've been following this series, you've seen NYSG before. In Episode 4, it appeared in the Entity Ownership Network. In Episode 5, it appeared in Wire Transfer Records. Now it appears again in Shipping Records. This is what cross-domain analysis looks like: the same entity surfacing independently across different evidence types. One more thing about NYSG LLC. It sent the last shipment in the entire corpus, September 28, 2005, a FedEx envelope to Brussels. We'll come back to that. Here's the timeline. In 2000, the accounts are quiet, single digits per month ramping up. By mid-2001, volume jumps dramatically, 40, 50, 60 shipments a month. December 2003 is the peak, 83 shipments in a single month. Then the decline. 2004 averages about 35 per month. 2005 continues falling. And then September 2005, everything stops. After September, there are exactly 8 more shipments scattered across 2006 and 2007. 8 out of 2894. That is not a gradual wind down. That is a hard stop. We'll come back to what that stop means. The last shipment in the corpus, September 28, 2005. A FedEx envelope, half a pound, sent by Lauren Quintner at NYSG LLC from 457 Madison Avenue to Brussels, Belgium. A woman named Marie Joseph Experton at a company called Carnet Experton, SEPRI, on Avenue Louise. $22.22, an international envelope, routine correspondence. And then, nothing. 4 months later, in January 2006, Jeffrey Epstein is arrested by Palm Beach police. Our cross-domain synthesis engine, the analysis of competing hypotheses, scores the spoliation hypothesis at plus 5.20. That's a measure of how well the evidence supports the theory that the cessation was awareness-driven. Someone knew something was coming. We cannot prove that from shipping records alone, but the timing is what it is. And here's what makes it more interesting. The two accounts don't die the same way. NYSG LLC, the corporate account, sends its last shipment on September 28th and never sends another. 0. A hard kill. The personal account, Epstein's name, limps on. 8 scattered shipments through 2007. A package to Zorro Ranch in April 2006. Janusz Banasiak sending to Epstein interest in July. A veterinary shipment. The corporate account was shut down deliberately and completely. The personal account continued sporadically, as if no one bothered to close it because it was in an individual's name, not an entity's. If you were cleaning up a paper trail, which account would you kill first? Think about it. The one with the LLC name on it. The one that connects to a corporate structure, that links back to filings, to officers, to a discoverable entity, or the one in a person's name that just looks like someone's personal FedEx account. The data shows us which one was killed first. We observe, you interpret. 148 shipments in the corpus are designated third party in the payer field. At first glance, that might suggest 148 outside entities paying for their own shipments on someone else's invoice. That's not what it means. 139 of those 148, 94%, still bill to Epstein's personal FedEx account. The third-party designation means someone other than Epstein initiated the shipment and charged it to his account. So the question isn't who paid, the question is who had the account number, who had billing access. And this wasn't occasional. 15 to 29 third-party shipments per year consistently from 2001 through 2005, an ongoing operational arrangement. The shipping records reveal a property network. 5 addresses account for a disproportionate share of all shipping traffic. 457 Madison Avenue, Floor 4, the operations hub, the single highest volume address in the dataset. 9 East 71st Street, the Manhattan Townhouse. 358 Brillo Way, Palm Beach. 49 Zorro Ranch Rd, Stanley, New Mexico, and 6100 Red Hook Quarter, St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands, Little St. James. These 5 properties form a shipping circuit. Packages flow between them constantly, carried by the same names, signed for by the same staff. Let's look at each one. 457 Madison Avenue, Floor 4. This is the nerve center. Both FedEx accounts, Epstein's personal and NYSG LLC, are registered to this address. The majority of outbound shipments originate here. Over 100 inbound shipments are delivered here. The signatures tell us who was physically present. W. Dullen, S. Griffiths, C. Mendez, R. Henderson, staff who signed for incoming packages at the 4th floor office. Lauren Quintner, the NYSG LLC attorney, sends from here. Larry Morrison, the logistics coordinator, operates from here. It's the operational center of the shipping network. 9 East 71st Street. The Manhattan Townhouse, Epstein's primary New York residence, distinct from 457 Madison Avenue, which was the office. The townhouse appears in the shipping records primarily through the zip code 10021 versus the office's 10022. At least 10 shipments originate from the 10021 address. Nearby, 301 East 66th Street, Apartment 11P. That's Mark Epstein's building, through OSA Properties. Packages go there too. The residence is a lower volume node than the office, but it matters. It places specific senders and recipients at the private address rather than the commercial one. 49 Zorro Ranch Rd, Stanley, New Mexico. Epstein's ranch property, remote, rural, about 40 miles southeast of Santa Fe. In the shipping records, Zorro Ranch is notable for 2 reasons. First, it's the #1 third-party destination. 29 of 148 third-party shipments go here. Someone was regularly shipping to the New Mexico property on Epstein's account. Second, the names. Karen L. Gordon sends a 40-pound package from West Palm Beach to the ranch. K. L. Gordon sends documents from the ranch to St. Thomas. Bryce Gordon receives packages here. Sam Scanlon ships from here. These aren't names from Epstein's Manhattan social circle. These appear to be ranch staff or residents, people with ongoing operational roles at the property. 358 Brillo Way, Palm Beach. The Florida residence. In the shipping data, Palm Beach appears both as a destination for packages from New York and as an origin. John Alessi, the house manager, sends 13 shipments from here. Maxwell appears as a recipient at the Palm Beach address. Miss G. Maxwell, December 2003, $129.36. Nearby, just minutes away, is Palm Beach International Airport, where Jeggy Inc. operated out of 1514 Perimeter Road. Jet Aviation, the FBO, was at 1515 Perimeter Road. This is where Rosemary Pitcher signed for aircraft parts. Palm Beach is the junction point between the residential network and the aviation network. 6100 Red Hook Quarter, St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands. Little St. James LLC, the corporate entity for Epstein's Island. Rosemary Pitcher at Jet Aviation sends 3 shipments here, 82 pounds total, declared values totaling $737, not documents, physical goods, all addressed to Miles Alexander, who appears to be the USVI receiving agent. Jean Brennan at Financial Trust Company receives at the same address, Suite B3, and someone sends her documents under the name Jeanne Jame Doe. We'll come back to that. Sesco, a company in Meridian, Idaho, ships heavy items, 52 to 87 pounds, to American Yacht Harbor, also on St. Thomas. The signers include Tim Cook, not the Apple CEO, just to be clear. The island is the end point of multiple shipping routes. What arrives there, by weight and by frequency, paints a picture of active operations, not an idle vacation property. The people. The FedEx records name specific individuals, not as subjects of investigation, but as senders, recipients, and signers. These are the names the data surfaces. Larry Morrison, 14 plus shipments as sender, the logistics coordinator. John Alessi, 13 shipments, the house manager. Ghislaine Maxwell appears roughly 30 times across OCR variants as both sender and recipient. Bella Klein, Darren Indyke, Larry Visosky, Lauren Quintner, Janusz Banasiak, Alfredo Rodriguez. Some of these names you've already heard in previous episodes. Others are new, surfaced for the first time through the FedEx data. Each one tells a different part of the story. Let's look at each one and what the shipping records specifically show. Larry Morrison, 22 plus shipments as sender, operating from both 457 Madison Avenue and Palm Beach. He's the logistics coordinator, the person who moves things between properties. His packages go to the JEGE Incorporated hangar in Fort Lauderdale, to Danny Daniels in Opelika, to addresses in New Albany, Ohio, Wexner territory. His shipments are heavier than average, 17.5 pounds mean weight. One shipment to Fort Lauderdale weighed 120 pounds. That's not paperwork. His name appears in a reference field, L. Morrison, on a shipment to NY Strategy Group, linking him directly to the NYSG LLC entity. And at the JEGE hangar, Rosemary Pitcher regularly signs for his incoming packages. He's a node that connects the office, the aviation operation, and the properties. Ghislaine Maxwell. Approximately 30 FedEx records, and I say approximately because her name appears under at least 10 different OCR spellings. G. Maxwell, Zero Maxwell, where the OCR read the G as a 0. Ghislaine, O'Ghislaine, Chislane, Sitlislane. As a sender, she ships to Berkeley, New York, New Jersey, New Albany, Ohio, and internationally to her siblings Pandora and Kevin Maxwell at Molesford Manor in England. As a recipient, she receives at multiple addresses: New York, Palm Beach, Stanley, New Mexico, Beverly Hills, Irving, Texas. One package weighed 100 pounds. In our cross-domain analysis, Maxwell appears across 3 evidence domains: FedEx shipping, wire transfers, and named entity recognition across the broader corpus with over 49,000 mentions. She is one of the most interconnected nodes in the entire dataset. 3 evidence domains, independent sources, convergent evidence, the kind that survives cross-examination. Bella Klein. 15 records in the FedEx data, not just as sender, but also as recipient. She sends to Dottie Wilson 3 times, to Zorro Development Corp., to a postage meter company. She receives from Zorro Ranch and from Alfredo Rodriguez. But here's what the cross-domain timeline reveals. In the FedEx records, Bella Klein is active from January 2001 through January 2005, the operational period, shipping envelopes, managing correspondence. Then silence. 10 years. 2005, 2006, 2007, nothing. 2008, 2009, 2010, still nothing. 2011, 12, 13, 14, a decade passes, and then she reappears in the wire transfer records. March 2015, a $3,100 wire to Johanna Thringer. March 2019, $47, 4 months before Epstein's arrest. She's in the shipping network when the operation is running. She vanishes when the FedEx accounts go dark, and she reappears in the financial records a decade later, during the period when Epstein was rebuilding as a registered sex offender. One more detail. The last FedEx record involving Bella Klein, January 18, 2005, is a shipment from Alfredo Rodriguez, the same Alfredo Rodriguez who signed for the pseudonym packages at Financial Trust Company. These threads keep connecting. We're just following the data. Darren Indyke. Epstein's in-house attorney at Southern Financial LLC for over 15 years. Co-executor of the estate alongside Richard Kahn, HBRK principal. In the FedEx data, Indyke doesn't appear as a high-volume shipper. His presence is more subtle. A combined name, Lauren, Darren, parsed from a shipment record, references and document flows. The synthesis engine counts 17 FedEx events in the bridge table. But his significance is cross-domain. In Episode 4, he's in the Entity Ownership Network. In Episode 5, he's subject number 1 in the SAR. In the Deutsche Bank records, he's a primary counterparty. The FedEx data adds one more thread to an already thick rope. K.L. Gordon. This is the pseudonym investigation. On January 12, 2004, someone named K.L. Gordon at Zorro Ranch sends a half-pound envelope from Albuquerque to St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands. The recipient, Jeanne Jame Doe at Financial Trust Company, 6100 Red Hook Quarter, Suite B3. Jame Doe. A feminized Jane Doe. On the same invoice, 1 page earlier, another shipment goes to the same company, same address, same suite, same signer, Alfredo Rodriguez. But this recipient is named Jean Brennan. Same address, same suite, same company, same signer. Jeanne Jame Doe is Jean Brennan. Someone at Zorro Ranch, Karen L. Gordon, sent documents to a trust company employee under a deliberate alias. We verified this against the source PDF, invoice 1-521-73658. It's real. Now look at the full timeline. September 2002. The New York office sends to Jean Brennan openly, her real name, no alias. December 2003. Zorro Ranch sends to Jeanne Jame Doe, The pseudonym. July and September 2004. Shipments go to Jeanne Brennan again. Real name. The alias appears only on shipments originating from the New Mexico property, not from New York, not from Palm Beach, not from the Virgin Islands, only from Zorro Ranch. The Manhattan office doesn't use it. Sit with that for a moment. The same person, the same trust company, the same suite number, but the name changes depending on which property sends the package. One interpretation. Whoever was at Zorro Ranch wanted to obscure the connection between the ranch and the trust company on shipping records. The NYC office, where Epstein's name was already on the account, had no reason to hide it. And financial trust company doesn't end with the FedEx records. In June 2010, 5 years after the last shipment, a $137,000 wire transfer arrives at financial trust company from Bill Doherty. The trust company persists long after the shipping network is killed. A pseudonym on a FedEx envelope. An alias used only from one property. A trust company that outlives its client by years. We're observing the data. You draw the conclusions. The sign-by network. Every time someone signs for a FedEx package, they're proving physical presence. They were at that address, on that date, receiving that delivery. Rosemary Pitcher signed 16 times at the JEGE hangar, Palm Beach International Airport. She was there regularly from May 2001 through December 2004. W. Dolin and S. Griffiths signed at 457 Madison Avenue, office staff. T. Cook and M. Missack signed at the USVI address, island operations. Alfredo Rodriguez signed at Financial Trust Company in St. Thomas. Even the signer Zorro at Zorro Ranch tells us someone, using the ranch name as their identifier, was present to receive packages in New Mexico. None of this is evidence of wrongdoing, but it is evidence of presence, and presence, combined with dates, is the raw material of an alibi or a timeline. We show our mistakes. Observation 1. Robert Crumb. A FedEx record showing a recipient named Robert had something OCR rendered as Art of Women in Haleiwa, Hawaii. Our initial interpretation was that this was Robert Crumb, the underground comics artist. Plausible. Interesting. Wrong. External verification established that Robert Crumb has lived in France since 1991. The business Art of Women doesn't exist. The sender address isn't even Epstein's. The identification collapsed under scrutiny. The recipient named Robert in Hawaii is an unknown person. Observation 4. John Waters. 13 FedEx records. But John Waters is a common name. We have no definitive evidence linking these shipments to the filmmaker. Status: unverified. Insufficient evidence. We include these not despite their failure, but because of it. If we only showed you the hits, you'd have no way to evaluate our methodology. Error correction is how trust is built. When we tell you something held up under verification, like the pseudonym, like the cessation pattern, you know we tested it the same way we tested these. And these failed. Weight. Of the 2894 shipments, only 1064 have a parsable weight, 36.8%. The rest are blank or OCR corrupted. Of those we can measure, the median is 1 pound. The mean is just under 6. Most shipments are FedEx envelopes or packs, half a pound to 1 pound. Legal papers, financial documents, correspondence. But weight is a proxy for content. A 1-pound envelope is paper. A 5-pound FedEx box might be a manuscript or a photo album. 25 pounds? You're shipping equipment, not letters. 100 pounds? That's a piece of furniture, a large appliance, or multiple heavy boxes. 305 pounds? What weighs 305 pounds in a FedEx shipment? The outliers. 305 pounds, 7 packages. Florida to the U.S. Virgin Islands. FedEx International Priority. $1,457 in shipping charges. The most expensive legitimate single shipment in the dataset. 250 pounds, New York to New York. Listed as a FedEx pack, which normally holds a few pounds of documents. That's almost certainly an OCR error on the package type, not the weight. 200 pounds, 130, 120. These are not documents. A ream of paper weighs 5 pounds. 25 reams, an entire case, weighs 125. 305 pounds is more than 2 full cases of paper. 305 pounds, shipped FedEx International Priority from Florida to the U.S. Virgin Islands at $1,457. We don't know what was in these packages. FedEx invoices don't record contents, but the weight data tells us that a significant subset of this shipping activity involved moving heavy physical objects between Epstein's properties. Radio fence. 2 shipments in the reference field carry this tag. The first, 2 pounds to Bal Harbor Boulevard, $1,710. $1,710 for a 2-pound package, $855 per pound. For context, the average FedEx charge in this dataset is $38.64. The second, Punta Gorda, Florida, no charge recorded. A radio fence is an electronic perimeter security system, wireless boundary equipment used to control access to a property. Separately, an 83-pound shipment goes to AirTech Communications with no return address and no sender name. Third-party build, classified as anomalous. Are these significant? We don't know. The cost-to-weight ratio on the first shipment is unusual. The missing sender on the AirTech shipment is unusual. But unusual is not evidence. What does weight tell us? It's a proxy, an indirect indicator. A 1-pound envelope is documents. A 300-pound multi-package shipment is not. Weight gives us content categories, not content identification. Weight does not tell us what was inside any package. It does not tell us the purpose of any shipment. A heavy package is not inherently suspicious. And the biggest caveat, 63.2% of all shipments have no weight data at all. Everything we've just shown you about weight applies to barely a third of the corpus. We present the weight analysis because it reveals the scale and nature of the logistics operation, but we do not claim it reveals criminal activity. That distinction matters. The geographic spread. Over 50 U.S. cities across more than 20 states. New York is the dominant hub, both origin and destination for the majority of shipments. Palm Beach, Stanley, New Mexico, New Albany, Columbus, Gahanna, Ohio, all Wexner-connected addresses. Fort Lauderdale, the aviation hub. St. Thomas, the island. Internationally, and this is where it gets interesting, shipments go to at least 16 countries. Belgium, the last shipment in the corpus. France, Epstein's Paris apartment at 22 Avenue Foch. The United Kingdom, Maxwell's family. South Africa, Cape Town. Sweden. Russia, St. Petersburg, Belarus, Italy. Cambridge, Massachusetts appears multiple times. Shipments to Professor Andrew Strominger at Harvard. Look at the map. New York at the center. Lines radiating outward, domestic and international. This is not a local shipping operation. This is a global logistics network run through 2 FedEx accounts at a single Manhattan address. The international shipments. Brussels. The last shipment in the corpus. An envelope from NYSG LLC. Paris. Multiple touchpoints. Epstein's apartment at 22 Avenue Foch, where a package is sent to Valdzon with the reference nose hair clippers. Signed by M. Epstein. URSAF, the French Social Security Agency. Alberto Pinto, the interior designer. London, the International Institute for Strategic Studies, a defense and security think tank with reference Leslie. Maxwell's family at Molesford Manor in Oxfordshire. Cape Town, St. Petersburg, Oksana Revenko with the reference Bella. Bobruisk, Belarus. Sweden, Eva Andersson, reference muffins. In the next episode, when we reconstruct the flight logs, we'll be looking for these same destinations. If the same cities appear in both the shipping records and the flight records, that's independent corroboration of a geographic pattern. Cross-domain verification. This is the payoff of running multiple analysis pipelines across different evidence types. 9 entities in our dataset appear in both FedEx shipping records and at least one other evidence domain. Epstein and Maxwell appear in 3 domains each: FedEx, wire transfers, and NER across the broader corpus. 5 entities are new cross-domain discoveries: Southern Financial LLC, Bella Klein, Financial Trust Company, each surfacing independently in FedEx data and wire transfer records. Not because we went looking for them, because the analysis pipelines found them separately. This is what independent corroboration means. When a shipping parser and a wire transfer parser, running different code on different documents, both surface the same entity, that's not coincidence. That's convergent evidence. 9 cross-domain leads. Not findings, leads. The confidence threshold for a finding is 0.75. None of these reach it yet. But the static table misses the most interesting part, the temporal signatures. Bella Klein is in the shipping network from 2001 to 2005, then nothing for 10 years. Then she reappears in wire transfers in 2015 and 2019. Operational period, dormancy, financial reactivation. 3 phases, 1 entity. Financial Trust Company receives FedEx shipments from 2002 through September 2005, the very last month of shipping activity. Then, in 2010, 5 years later, a $137,000 wire arrives at the same entity. It survives the cessation. NYSG LLC, hard kill. September 28, 2005. Never sends again. JEGE Inc., Aviation Logistics, ends 2004, no wire activity. It dies and stays dead. 4 entities, 4 different temporal signatures, 4 different fates after the cessation. The entities don't just co-occur across domains. They have life cycles. Some die with the shipping network. Some persist into the financial record for years. That distinction, who survived the cessation and who didn't, may be the most telling pattern in the data. The spoliation question. Our analysis of competing hypotheses. The ACH matrix from our cross-domain synthesis engine scores the spoliation hypothesis at plus 5.20. What does that mean? It means the available evidence is more consistent with the hypothesis that records were deliberately destroyed or concealed than with the alternative hypotheses. The temporal pattern supports this. Shipping volume declines throughout 2004. The Palm Beach Police Department begins its investigation in March 2005. Shipping continues at reduced volume through September 2005, then stops completely. 4 months before the arrest. 25 shipping gaps appear in the data. The largest, 390 days, comes after the arrest. The second largest, 104 days, is the cessation gap itself. Is this proof of spoliation? No. People stop using FedEx accounts for many reasons, but the timing, a gradual decline followed by an abrupt stop during an active investigation, is the pattern you would expect to see if someone were cleaning up their paper trail. Hence the name of the series. But here's what the spoliation question doesn't usually ask. What survived? Let's take them one at a time. The corporate accounts. NYSG LLC, killed completely. September 28, 2005. 0 shipments after that date, ever. JEG Inc., the aviation entity. FedEx activity ends 2004. Gone. These are the entity-facing accounts, the ones with corporate names on them, the ones with discoverable ownership records. Now the personal account. The personal account limps on. Banashek sends a package to Epstein interests in July 2006. Epstein ships to Zorro Ranch in April. Routine activity from a personal account that nobody bothered to close. And the trust infrastructure, financial trust company, Bella Klein. These entities don't die with the shipping network. They reappear years later in the wire transfer records. Financial Trust gets a $137,000 wire in 2010. Klein surfaces in 2015 and 2019. The trust infrastructure outlives the shipping network by a decade. So 3 categories: corporate, killed; personal, neglected; trust, persists through entirely different channels. The pattern isn't everything stopping at once. It's selective. The corporate logistics trail is cut. The trust and financial infrastructure persists through different channels. That's not proof of anything, but it is a pattern, and patterns are what we observe. What FedEx cannot tell us. We've spent 40 minutes showing you shipping data, routes, names, weights, patterns, but invoices are logistics records. They record who sent what to whom. They do not record what was inside. They do not record why. They do not provide context. Shipping a package is not evidence of wrongdoing. Receiving a package is not evidence of complicity. Signing for a delivery is evidence of physical presence, nothing more. What we showed you: 2894 structured records, a property network, named individuals, weight anomalies, temporal patterns, cross-domain convergence. What we claim: this is what the data shows, nothing more, nothing less. That distinction matters. The audience can draw their own conclusions. Our job is to show the data accurately and transparently, correct our errors publicly, and never pretend the evidence says more than it does. The pipeline. Script 11 is the parser. It takes approximately 16,600 raw FedEx invoice pages and extracts 2894 structured shipping records. Each record captures up to 20 fields: tracking ID, dates, sender, recipient, weight, charges, service type, signed by, account, payer, and the source document identifier. The OCR challenges are real. Ghislaine becomes O'Ghislaine becomes Sitless Lane. Madison becomes Madison becomes Imdison. A charge of $50.72 becomes $5,032 when the OCR drops the decimal point. These aren't failures of the parser. They're failures of the OCR engine reading degraded scans of printed invoices. The parser extracts what it can. The analysis pipeline downstream has to handle the noise. Script 12 is the analysis engine. It takes the 2894 rows from the parser and runs them through 6 analysis modules: temporal, geographic, network, weight, financial, and anomaly detection. The output is 27 CSV files. Every chart, every table, every number you've seen in this episode comes from one of those files. Monthly volume, top senders, heavy shipments, known associate shipments, third-party billing, shipping gaps, account comparison. This matters because it means every finding is reproducible. If you download the same dataset and run the same scripts, you get the same numbers. That's the difference between analysis and opinion. The charge sweep. This is methodology transparency at its most uncomfortable. The original charge data, straight from OCR, totaled $502,000. We verified 99 records against the source PDF invoices. 72 were wrong. The corrected total, $75,584. 84% of the original charge total was OCR error. The dominant pattern was simple. The OCR engine dropped the decimal point. $50.72 became $5,072, sometimes with an additional digit substitution. 5072 became 5032. We could have presented the uncorrected numbers. They'd look more dramatic. Instead, we verified them, corrected them, documented every correction, and now we're showing you the correction process itself. 4 records remain unresolved. Tracking IDs too corrupted to match against source invoices. We flagged them rather than guess. Transparent science. What we showed: 2894 shipments, 2 accounts, 5 properties, named individuals, weight anomalies, a pseudonym used only from one property, cross-domain entities with temporal life cycles, some dying with the shipping network, some persisting years later through wire transfers, a differential cessation where corporate accounts were killed and trust infrastructure survived. What we interpreted, and this is one reading of the data: the pseudonym's geographic selectivity suggests deliberate obscuring. The differential cessation is consistent with prioritized cleanup. The entity life cycles suggest selective preservation. These are observations, not evidence of criminal activity. Other interpretations may be equally valid. We present them because the patterns are there, and hiding patterns is no better than inventing them. But interpretation is yours to make, not ours to impose. What we did not claim: contents, criminal purpose, intent, that the cessation was definitively awareness-driven. What remains unknown: 63% of shipments with no weight, why the pseudonym was used, what triggered the 2004 volume decline, the contents of every single package. These are not small gaps, they are fundamental, and we name them explicitly so you can weigh our findings accordingly. Transparent science. What we found, what we interpreted, what we didn't claim, and what we don't know. Every episode. Error log. Tags. Single source limitation. 63% missing weight. 32% missing dates. 1 unverified charge. Tags. 72 charge corrections. 10 plus name variants for 1 person. 4 unresolvable records. Tags. Entity counts are approximate. Tags. 65 unattributed shipments. Mean weight inflated by outliers. Tags. 2 calculated values. These are the known limitations. They're part of the record. Every episode, every error, documented. Next episode. EP07, Flight Patterns. We took handwritten flight logs, pages of pilot shorthand, abbreviations, illegible cursive, and ran them through the same VLM pipeline we use for the FedEx invoices and the wire transfers. 4286 flights parsed, 392 passenger names recovered, co-traveler networks, route forensics, alias resolution. The shipping records told us what moved between the properties. The flight logs tell us who. Who flew where and with whom.